Drama. What would we be without it? 2019 has been a year full of entertainment, controversy, frustration and tragedy, and here on YouTube we have witnessed some of the most eventful drama there has ever been. From the abuse of YouTube's copyright system to false allegations that almost ruin the lives and careers of the people accused, as well as issues that introduce new problems for creators to deal with. To say the least, it's been a busy year. These are just the three major themes we've seen with some of the biggest drama. However, we are not limited to those, as there have also been events that cause major controversy in their own isolated ways. As well as this, there have been certain people who have been at the forefront of the drama and really made a mess of 2019 for their own online image. Now, YouTube released its Rewind in the first week of December, and it definitely failed to impress, not only because of how safe it was, but because it didn't really reflect the year we've had on YouTube. So I think we deserve to indulge ourselves on some of the biggest events that happened within the YouTube community this year and take a look at how they impacted the thinking and development of those who love to be involved with the happenings of the YouTube world. Join me on this journey as we look back through the biggest events of this year and explore how people responded to each situation, as well as highlight some of the biggest issues facing our platform. Before we do, please grab yourself a beverage, take a seat, and make yourself comfortable as we delve into the world of drama to see what made 2019 the most eventful year to date. The year started off with a bang. Straight off the bat, we were thrust into the first major controversy within the first 2 weeks of the year, and included issues that were carried over from 2018. Major Twitch streamer Pokimane became the center of attention after a video regarding her use of the copyright system, hypocrisy, and alleged bullying of a viewer was graced by the YouTube algorithm and was thrust into the recommended, boosting it up to over 3 million views within a week. The Dark Side of Pokimane was released in late 2018 by Fainteds, and explored the conflict between Pokimane and Boblax after he received a copyright strike for a video covering the Twitter argument she had with Keemstar.
I'm not gonna lie, I laughed pretty hard at the ending of your video because you say that I'm overreacting, yet you called me a fraud just for asking you to be nicer to other people's fans. Who's really overreacting in that situation?
It then moved on to making an argument of hypocrisy based on the lack of transformation she provides on clips she reacts to when she's streaming, and then brought up an incident that occurred during one of her streams.
Yeah, I found your Instagram too.
That's me.
It wasn't until January that the video blew up, and in that time, the situation attracted the attention of PewDiePie, who released a video covering the rampant issue of copyright abuse on YouTube. His and Fainted's videos simultaneously grew together, and a whole lot of attention was thrust onto Pokimane, who was forced into making a response to the issue. The reaction to the video was negative, with the most common criticism of it being that she didn't apologize for what she did. However, this wasn't necessarily true, as the main issue discussed was actually resolved between Boblax and Pokimane a day before Fainted's video was released, nearly 2 weeks before it went viral. The omission of this information led to the illusion that she was rampantly removing content with a disregard for fair use. However, it wasn't entirely the case. In the end, the drama didn't really have any impact on anything of concern, and the issue of rampant copyright abuse still progressed after the Pokimane situation died down. Days after the Pokimane drama began to settle, a video by Lieutenant Cobra was taken down by a much larger YouTuber, Just Destiny. The video, ironically titled The Dark Side of Just Destiny, was critical of Just Destiny's focus on children and the use of them in the thumbnails of his videos. Although relatively innocent and just an unbelievable theory, the response to the video was a lot more radical than was necessary and put a lot of heat onto Just Destiny. He filed a copyright takedown on the video, and in turn copyright struck Lieutenant Cobra's video, removing it entirely from public view. Now, this was the ultimate brain fart from Just Destiny, as copyright abuse was the main topic everyone was enraged and talking about during this present time, and it was only inevitable that it would receive attention. Keemstar was the first large creator that gave the issue attention, which led to that interview.
It seems really weird to me. It's like, from the outside looking in, like, it makes me have to ask this question, like, do you touch kids?
Oh my God, really?
But do you? Do you touch kids?
Kim, stop asking ridiculous questions.
Are you into underage kids sexually?
After this, Just Destiny released a video trying to justify what he did, which just resulted in PewDiePie including a segment on him in Pew News on February 12. The moral of the story? Stop abusing the copyright system and don't respond to criticism by trying to completely remove it from existence. Simple. You'd think people would get the idea, right? Nope. Almost 2 months after Just Destiny's fiasco, another YouTuber decided to grace the community with their ignorance and started sending false strikes to people who criticized her. Susie Liu, who was actually in the YouTube Rewind, was caught false copyright striking smaller creators and false flagging the people who covered the situation. What she showed us was a complete lack of self-awareness and also a sense of arrogance and disregard for the systems in place to protect creators. She willingly showed everyone her flag history and, well, let's just say the drama wrote itself. Although the Susie Liu incident wasn't widely known because of the fact that she's highly irrelevant compared to the first 2 copyright fiascos, it still highlighted the struggle that creators have with the flawed copyright systems on YouTube. Later in our Rewind, we'll observe another creator who's recently been blasted into the spotlight due to their predatory ways, who blatantly abused the copyright systems yet still remains free to use the sites, although maybe not for long. But what this shows us is that one of the biggest issues this year is due to the sole incompetence of YouTube itself, who have this copyright system in place so they aren't liable for the lawsuits if anything goes wrong. In turn, this allows individuals and even companies to capitalize on the weakness of the system and claim whatever they want, as well as remove whatever they want. There needs to be a change. I find it interesting that the first 2 months seemingly revolved around drama due to copyright abuse, and it's also interesting how it didn't really change anything. The systems are still shit, there are definitely people still abusing it, and people haven't really been punished for abusing these systems. However, the next category will show some sort of change, as well as some sort of justice, and it boasts itself as being arguably one of the biggest issues we face this year. Let's have a look at the false allegations that truly stumped everyone in the YouTube community. This year we saw a very concerning trend with how people responded to sensitive situations that were presented in a very informal and reckless way. False allegations were the biggest problem that faced the community and could have possibly resulted in some very bad things happening to the people caught in the crossfire. What's even worse is that they all happened around the same time and all concluded with the same result. Furthermore, these incidents provide us with a very harsh reality of the power of platforms like YouTube and Twitter, and the need to have some conclusive evidence before you publicly defame someone and cause them to lose face and their online image. 2 of the biggest incidents happened simultaneously, with Pro Jared being accused of many things, including sending underage fans explicit imagery by his ex-wife Heidi and 2 alleged victims, and James Charles being accused of trying to sexually exploit straight men and being a predator by another beauty YouTuber, Tati Westbrook. The result of the initial accusations was quite detrimental, with Pro Jared initially losing the most subscribers in a single day on YouTube, for James Charles to overtake that and also be the first person to lose over 1 million subs in a day. It was quite the reaction from each community, and also shows how fast people are to willingly accept the allegations as fact without hearing a response from the accused party, and also relying on unverified screenshots spread across Twitter. For example, one person on Twitter posted screenshots and screen recordings of a supposed interaction with James Charles. However, since we live in 2019 and people don't have potato computers anymore, it's so easy to fake interactions with people online. The supposed Instagram DMs with James Charles was exposed by John Swan, who replied with a Twitter video destroying any credibility the screenshots from the user had. This user no longer exists, and shows us how big of an issue this really is, because people are so susceptible to believing the receipts that could possibly be illegitimate and progresses this idea of a cancel culture that we are currently experiencing. It's also a good reason why DMs aren't the most trustworthy source of evidence when it comes to accusing someone of something this serious, unless vetted by a reliable source, so make sure you don't believe something that's potentially false as well as defamatory. James Charles did eventually have the last laugh and released the video No More Lies, which addressed the situation in a calmer and more calculated way as compared to the original reaction that didn't come off very well for him. In the video, he provided context for the accusations that were made against him, as well as dispelling the false and manufactured stories that are exposed as being such. The reaction to the video was a majority in favor of James. He eventually began to regain the subscribers he had lost and also began to focus on rebuilding his mental health. The key accuser Tati, as well as Jeffree Star, folded after the video and released apologies for their individual parts in the devastating drama that revolved around some fucking gummy bears. All that for an advertisement. At the same time, there was of course the pro-Jared situation, which was a lot more nuanced and definitely a lot more confusing. It began after Jared announced his divorce with Heidi on Twitter, to which she responded with a plethora of aggravated tweets accusing Jared of quite a few not so good things. This obviously resulted in Jared losing subscribers, but also having images spread online, and they went everywhere. However, the main talking point was the accusation that he had sent underage fans nude images, as he used to have a Tumblr where he would exchange nudes with consenting fans over 18. Again, these were based on very dubious claims and evidence, yet people still chose to accept them as incriminating material, and off we go, cancelling Jared. It took a lot longer for him to respond. His response came at the end of August, nearly 4 months after the original backlash. The video seemingly conveyed his side of the story and refuted the accusation that he was exchanging nudes with underage people and he's therefore not a pedo. However, he confirmed he did solicit nudes from fans. I personally still see that as an issue and something you could rightfully criticize him for, but the accusations of pedophilia were unjust and unsubstantiated, which is again a part of the issue we've had this year. As a result of this situation, Jared has been arguably affected a lot more than anyone else with regards to his online image, especially considering the lack of views he's received now as compared with before the allegations took place. However, I believe that the next and final situation that we will look at was the worst that happened this year, and it's one that I still feel genuinely upset about. On the 10th of June, the YouTuber Slahser was accused of rape and emotional abuse by his former girlfriend Shay, who posted a twit-longer expose accompanied with screenshots to further contextualize her story. At the time, multiple large creators came forward in a show of support for Shay, retweeting her tweet and offering messages of goodwill, platforming her accusations to a potential reach of hundreds of thousands of people. Keemstar was quick to get onto the news and asked Slahser for a comment, in which he received a vague dissuasion towards the allegations and that he was going to take his time to respond officially. Shay took the opportunity to capitalize on this further and released a second twit-longer further exploring recent interactions she had with Slahser. As is the trend, people started unsubscribing from Slahser and began hurtling the accusations in his video comments and in his Twitter replies. To what shock would you be if I also told you that these allegations were also disingenuous? What made this situation more upsetting was the fact that people who were friends with Slahser, as well as fellow creators he had met and worked with, joined in on the mass deplatforming of him and essentially shunned him away from any sort of possibility that he could actually be innocent. Even up to the day he released his response, large creators were still putting out tweets branding him guilty and further pushing the idea of him being a bad person. His response completely changed this, and it really flipped the entire situation on its head. On June the 27th, Slahser released My Side, and it truly turned the tables. Shay lied about the assault. She provided out-of-context messages that made Slahser look guilty, and essentially made a mockery of legitimate sexual assault survivors. A lot of her accusations were hearsay and should not have been released the way it was, because if she truly thought Slahser was a threat, she would have went to the police, who take this seriously in Australia, or seek legal help, not some uneducated, ignorant YouTube celebrities. After Slahser's video, the people who supported Shay didn't adjust their stance or apologize for propagating the lies that hurt Slahser. They all doubled down. The two key perpetrators of this were King Anna and I'm Alex. King Anna went on a Twitter thread defensive, further reinforcing this idea that Slahser was guilty of what he did in the past, completely disregarding the fact that he was accused of sexual assault and not just being a bad boyfriend. Her response was manipulative and tried to shift the attention away from the main point against Slahser, which was sexual abuse, and there's now no evidence. She tries to play the age card, but there's no point to make. They're both still school age and are equally immature. It was just an attempt to shift the focus away from the failing narrative. I'm Alex took another route and was essentially the person who took the biggest fallout of everyone involved in the false allegations. He responded on Twitter with a video.
I don't believe he's innocent. I don't think he's innocent at all. Che may not also be innocent and may have hid stuff and used jokes to try and maybe push a certain agenda. But at the same time, the stuff that Michael admitted to is stuff that makes me not want to be friends with somebody who is capable of doing those things, even the things he admitted to.
This response was very poor. Not only did Alex justify his stance based on something that had happened 2 or so years ago, he stood his ground, further pushing Slahser away and tried to argue that he was still some sort of a monster. It wasn't long after Slahser's video that the narrative flipped on these people. Other commentators began discussing the situation, more is revealed about what had actually happened, and they started getting attention from the community. This community is relentless, and demanded that the people involved in the situation apologize to Slahser for what they had helped spread. This was further amplified through early July when most of the big videos covering the situation were released. Nicholas Diario started the party with a video discussing the misinformation Alex had spread over the past year. I then released my video covering the entire situation. Kavos made a video calling out Alex. The Baited podcast returned with an exclusive episode also on Alex. During this, VidCon was underway and mostly all of the people who were involved in this attack against Slahser attended the event. The convention was used as a way of avoiding a majority of the accountability and a way for them to hide from the criticism. However, the day after VidCon, Turkey Tom delved further into the situation and exposed that those involved had known about these allegations for more than a month and that they all coordinated with Shay to make sure that the expose got the attention they wanted and that Slahser was quickly removed from the community. People like Hyojin, Weastoner, Quite, Bluesdank and Dolan Dark, along with I'm Alex and King Anna, started getting a lot more attention for what they did, and the community was ultimately outraged. A day later, Nick released a video that focused primarily on I'm Alex and what Alex had talked to him about for over 3 hours in a private Discord call. This was also the first time anyone had seen Slahser since his response, and in the interview with Nick and Tommy C, he looked very dejected, and the result of these false allegations clearly had a serious effect on him. After this video, Dolan Dark released an apology on Reddit, the first person to do so, more than 2 weeks after the response. Turkey Tom released his second video on the 21st of July, which resulted in a bit of complication, but it was resolved a few days later. It took Alex, who was at the center of all the backlash, over a month to respond to what had happened, and it was met with mixed reactions, arguably with how unapologetic and disingenuous it appeared. At the end of the day, this drama didn't really conclude, and it will stick with Slahser for quite a long time. He recently released a video explaining his feelings about what happened and what went through his mind during the month he was cancelled, but he still holds off from naming those involved in trying to take him down. He has the power to really destroy the reputation of all those involved, yet he chooses not to, and that shows his character. He's genuine, which is a contrast to how he was represented. That is some food for thought. However, this saga definitely showed up a lot of those involved for who they really are and revealed their lack of integrity as public figures and disintegrated any credibility they had. The moral of the story and this overall segment is don't back something you can't prove, and if there's any sort of illegal acts described, go to an authority that can actually deal with the issue. The last of our trio of themes is one that affects every creator on YouTube and is the result of certain individuals who became villains in the blink of an eye. So let's have a look at the people who caused YouTube to change their rules and in turn make everyone's year hell. Remember this guy? Matt Watson, or on YouTube, Matt's What It Is, released a video earlier this year that started a campaign against YouTube because he just happened to stumble upon pedophile rings in the comment sections of videos with children. Now, this is a bad thing, and it's something of concern and has been for the last 2 years for YouTube. Ever since Elsagate, YouTube has been working to identify and eliminate content disguised as being family friendly, but serving an ulterior purpose. Their response to the situation was to terminate channels producing such content, remove thousands of videos, disable comments on many more videos targeted by predators, and demonetize over 50,000 channels. This is something they were already working on. However, Matt released a video exploring this new problem he had found and decided to make a lot of noise. The aim of his video was to hit YouTube where it would hurt the most in order to make them respond, because he believed that they weren't doing enough to stop these predators and were allowing them to run rampant on the site. Instead of providing a solution for the problem, the video urged the people who watched it go and complain to many advertisers he had allegedly seen advertising on these videos. As is always the case, some of the advertisers folded and stopped their spending on YouTube advertising, which saw the ad revenue available to creators take a rather noticeable hit. Companies like Disney, Epic Games and Nestle were among the biggest to pull out of their advertising program, which is why there was a somewhat noticeable decline in the overall Google AdSense. Of course, this affected the creators a lot more than it did YouTube, which saw Matt Watson piled with scrutiny from the community, and it turned out his motives weren't as pure as he made it out to believe. After his video, he started live streaming to update everyone on the situation, and this is where his whole campaign started to really fall apart. In these streams, he said things that highlighted his resentment towards YouTube, YouTube and his lack of empathy regarding those who rely on AdSense to be able to feed themselves and put a roof over their heads. He was happy when the advertisers pulled out because he had made that impact, but the bitter irony is that the advertisers pulling out didn't do anything. It just made things a whole lot worse. With that, he became a target of many large creators, and people like Keemstar made it known that he was doing this for his own benefit rather than the safety of the children. After all of the monetization issues we faced because of this, as well as some non-kid channels losing their comment sections, it didn't really change the outlook of the issue in any way. There are still ways dodgy people are going to use the site, and well, it's hard to enforce something that is as nuanced as literally having a video with a child in it. Matt Watson had a day of fame, and then he became one of the villains of the year. It's not just him that's caused YouTube to either lose advertisers or change their rules to appease the advertisers. On May 31, a journalist released a thread outlining harassment he received from Steven Crowder, who's just a bit of a muppet, and he basically had a whinge that Crowder had been making mean comments about him on his show. Collis Marza, whose Twitter name is GayWonk, released a thread calling for YouTube to deal with what he deems harassment on the platform, citing his experience with Steven Crowder. At the time, nothing really came from this, except for a debate of free speech and whether or not YouTube should be allowed to restrict people based on what they say. The response to this was relatively split, mainly because it involved individuals that people don't really like. One main point that came up a lot was that Crowder called Marza a lesbian queer, and this is what offended many people. But in the context of how he said it, he was just referring to him as such, a description. Even Marza's Twitter handle includes an insult. GayWonk can be interpreted as a negative description, so it's disingenuous for him to try and deplatform Crowder for what he said. This didn't stop people from siding with Marza, and the joke police came out in full force. One notable member was our good friend I'm Alex, who was a champion of deplatforming people for making jokes. YouTube investigated Crowder, but they didn't see how what he said broke the rules, and they definitely didn't want to get negative attention for removing his channel, because people value their freedom of speech. It wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that all of this has changed. YouTube's new creator harassment policies have come into effect, and we've seen videos like Content Cop and Gokunaru's video on H3H3 being removed in line with these new policies. This is a radical change that could potentially be used to silence the more outspoken people on the platform, and for example could potentially hit people who make videos on Onision due to the threshold of what dictates harassment. All in all, it's a negative move. Marza started it, Alfie Days and a few morons helped develop it, and well, now we as the creators pay the price. Great. These were the two biggest events that spurred radical and disruptive changes, and they set 2020 up as something of a worry for what may come. But enough of this boring dribble, and let's get onto the fun stuff. It's time for the uncontrolled mess that is the notable mention. Let's have a brief, quick-fire look at some of the isolated incidents that really caused a stir, some that made us just question why some people still have a platform, and some people who have had a pretty poor year. Of course, PewDiePie vs T-Series was one of the biggest trends of the year, especially because it was essentially a battle of originality versus a corporate body on our platform. They both eventually hit 100 million subscribers. T-Series just edged out PewDiePie, and that wasn't without controversy along the way. The biggest talking point was the fact that T-Series went to an Indian court to get PewDiePie's 2 diss tracks blocked or removed by YouTube, a big company having a big sad. Onision became popular again this year, and it's kind of good and bad in its own right. Onision has been a popular topic for quite a while now, and people like Repzion have been trying to get him removed from the site because he's more than likely a criminal. What really sparked the resurgence of Onision as a trending topic was the return of the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Hansen. Hansen started a YouTube channel later on in the year, and it's now called Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. He caught onto the Onision story and started to investigate it. He started interviewing the victims of Onision, and now it's possible that the FBI is involved in an investigation into what he's been accused of. And it's also given us masterpieces like this. Staying on the topic of Onion Boy, and there was a situation that's relatively unknown outside of a confined community, but it's utterly hilarious. A smaller YouTuber by the name of Madam, who is a self-described female leafy, well, she joined in on the Onision trend. However, she's a disingenuous arsehole, and it turned out her supposed lawsuit with Onision was a sham, and she scammed her followers into donating to a false cause. Not only this, but she also released a video calling Slahser a rapist, we all know that's not the case, and had the audacity to use it as a way of promoting her merch. As well as this, she also attacked an artist that had made her art. The artist was 15, and all they wanted was credit. The art stealing was the main thing that got her into trouble, and she got absolutely smashed by the art community. Because of this, she's gone and changed the name to Princess Ash to avoid any further affiliation with the Madden brand, and well, I thought I'd mention it because she's a bit of a rat. Might even make a video on her, let me know in the comments. Another person who found themselves in a bit of a pickle was none other than our favourite copy-striking Twitch thought, Alinity. This year she's had a bit of a... It was interesting to say the least. PETA, the people who kill dogs and shout at people for eating bacon, targeted her after a clip emerged of her throwing her cat over her head during a stream. The cat was fine. People may have overreacted until another clip emerged of her spitting vodka into a cat's mouth. Some would say Brooke Houts, you know, the woman who kicked and spat on a dog, is a better pet owner than Alinity because she found herself in another situation when she posted a clip of her dog doing not so family friendly things. She thought it was funny until people started finding more and more clips of her dog doing the exact same thing. She's either into bestiality or she's running some substances for the Colombian cartel. Take your pick. KSI beat Logan Paul. That's all I'm going to say about that, and moving on. Now to conclude, one person has arguably had a very forgettable year, and their reputation has somewhat taken a big fat L. As we've seen, Alex has not only been a key person in the spreading of the false allegations made against Slahser, but he also came to the defense of Carlos Maja, who in turn brought more restrictive rules to the platform. But these are not the only things that have come back to bite him this year, and what has happened has really impacted his credibility and reputation as a person within the commentary and drama communities. As well as Slahser, Alex jumped the gun on the James Charles allegations and released a video incriminating him before James had the chance to respond to each allegation properly. This of course means that Alex had jumped the gun on accepting allegations as fact before the accused released anything to argue innocence. What makes it worse is that he had done this before the Slahser allegations, yet he still managed to be ignorant to the fact of innocent until guilty and platformed the cancellation of Slahser. So this year alone he has spread false allegations of not one but two creators and kept the video spreading false information public as well as monetized. Another thing he's managed to do is show his inability to take criticism. The best example being his feud with Jack May over his criticism of Alex's performance in a podcast with Alfie Days and Inaba, where he seemingly got bent over by this whiny posh bastard. The criticism was fair and it was just, but that didn't stop Alex from having a complete meltdown and ranting to his audience of teenage girls and making amazing quotes like this.
I was amazed, honestly, just purely because of the fact that I was like, why would he poke me? Why would he poke me? I'm going to have to respond. Why would he do this? Why would he force my hand?
All this because Jack said he could have done better arguing against Alfie Days instead of agreeing with everything the slimy bastard had to say. It was deserved, and this commentary YouTuber who lives off the money he makes from criticizing others goes on cries on a Twitter live because someone he made a podcast with pointed out where he could have done better. Complete embarrassment. So that was all for the best of the rest. A lot has happened this year, a lot more than what I could have really fit into this video, from Danielle Cohn to dodgy pallets and Shane Dawson's controversial advertisement and all the broken nails in between. This year has seen it all, and well, I'm glad it's finally coming to a close. 2019 may have been a very chaotic year, but it has helped spread the rise of many new talents who've brought an original voice to the YouTube community, as well as keeping you, the viewer, entertained and informed. 2020 will see them thrive, but until then we can only reflect on what has happened this year, and well, see you next year.